Hello, welcome back to the curriculum video. This week we're going to be talking about jumping and landing. So, basic jumping and landing. What I mean by basic is just the jump 2 feet to 2 feet or 1 foot to 2 feet. There's been no plyos or strides in this video. If that's what you're looking for, go to a different video. So we'll start off with 1 foot jumps. The reason why I'm going to start with 1 foot jumps is that it's a little bit more natural for people to do. When you do a 1 foot jump, you can kick your other foot towards it and you're already half in a landing position rather than doing a 2 foot jump and diving towards an obstacle. So the first part of this is going to be their actual jumping technique. I like to do this on the floor over obstacles or over distances to certain lines. A really good thing to do is to be able to use a stick, and you can raise or lower this as they go. So maybe if some people are bigger jumpers, some not so much, then you can raise it and lower for the person, and you can also raise and lower it for when they're progressing. So there's a few things that we'll be looking at for the running jump technique. The first most obvious thing is the run up. This will give them the best chance to get a nice jump. That means no stutter steps. The next part that we'll look at is the foot placement on the obstacle. So a hex is going to be a nice big area for them to put their foot on, but as soon as we start to move to beams and bars, it gets a lot more tricky than that. So the next part is going to be the kicking leg. Now with the kicking leg, if you can imagine running and jumping off an obstacle and now you're in slow motion in the air, you're going towards a bar. Now my kicking leg has kicked above the line of sight from that bar, so it looks like my foot's too high. My jumping leg is starting to come up towards the bar, and now my kicking leg comes down towards the bar and they meet. When they meet, this is just a fraction of a second before you actually land. You can try it out yourselves to see what I mean. So when we're just doing running jumps over a small obstacle and landing back on the floor, there's not a corner to stop us. That means that it might feel a bit like you're going to slip or doesn't feel right to land on 2 feet. So what you can do, make sure they land on 2 feet, but then they can roll out of it. Don't focus on the roll too much. It's just an opportunity to say, this is where we would roll. So when you think they have the run and jump technique okay, we're going to start to take it to some bounce backs. So I usually start this on a slanted wall or the bottom slant part of the wooden boxes. The reason why we're doing this right away is because we want to expose them to this falling technique. More than often, if you don't expose them to this, they're going to be over jumping something, which is actually more tricky and less useful. If you can get them to bounce back, they're more likely to want to jump to the edge of an obstacle, which is the overall goal. So now you can start challenging them on some jumps. I would say that the best one to go to first is a running upwards precision. This is because the bounce back feels a lot more safe to them this way. Doing a level precision or a down precision, the bounce back doesn't really make as much sense to them. They're more likely to do a crane or another movement. But it's worth saying now, don't focus on the stick too much. Of course that's your overall goal, but the stick represents control. And without being able to bounce back and do some fall options and jump to the edge of something, the stick is not going to happen. So once you think that their landing is getting there, you can now introduce a new jump. So the 2 foot technique is a precision jump as we know it, but the thing about it is that as they jump, they're basically diving towards an obstacle, so their feet are behind them. So they have to try to get their feet up and then through, ready to land. So we can start the same process, jumping over something on the floor, then jumping over something onto an obstacle, and then we can do the bounce backs as well. The same process as we did with the running jumps. The good thing about this is that we can take our time. We don't have to do all this in 1 week. This is meant to be spread out between multiple weeks to get them really exposed and used to doing this stuff. They need that practice time. A lot of the common mistakes in jumping are involved with the actual landing part. So in precision jumps, maybe it's that they're not getting their feet out in front of them in time. Maybe with running jumps and precision jumps, it's that they're landing with 1 foot and the other. Now all of these things are usually ironed out if you focus on the bounce backs first. This kind of irons everything else out. What usually happens is we get them to jump to things first, and then we have to try to solve these mistakes down the line. By putting the bounce backs in first, they feel a lot more ready to accomplish the actual technique. So then the last element to the jumping is going to be discovery. And when we talk about discovery, it's both them finding their own jumps and you posing challenges for them. A lot of these things are going to be break and jump situations. Because they've already done the bounce backs, they're very used to that now, which means that now it's just overcoming the next part, which is going to be the sticking. It's also really good to show them upwards precisions, level and downwards as well. The likelihood is that when they do a down precision, which isn't particularly big, they're just trying to stick it, they may be taken off with 1 foot, which is perfectly fine. The idea is that we find out, and they can find out, when feels right to take off with 1 foot, when feels right to take off with 2 feet. For instance, if they're just standing still and they want to get up to something, they're most likely going to take off with 2 feet to get a box jump technique. So with all that in mind, just have a lot of fun with it. To reiterate the point, the aim is foot placement, to the edge of boxes, to beams and to bars, and then to work on the sticking. Play with it, they can challenge you, they can challenge each other, make loads of practice time and just have a good time. Thanks guys, see you in the next video.